There you go. Yeah, look at that tranquil ass team. Okay, homies, what's up, everybody? The Khaiza is back. We're actually doing this like, you know, a live real talk with the Khaiza. I mean, we've done like a few of these, but not like, you know, recently. Most of like my real talks, I feel like I'll have to like double check, but this is just me spitballing, come from like a YouTube recording, so it feels like a long time, me personally. And what we're gonna be like talking about, right, me and my bowl of like cherries right here, the clock is ticking, I'm out of my braces, right? That's how I was like, you know, drinking my tea. What we're going to be talking about today is something I've been like pondering about for some time now, ever since I think like 2 weeks ago, and that is something called, or I would like to phrase it, fighting game stains or fighting game skeletons, right? I like the acronym, it rolls off the tongue, you know, because when I think about it, it's like FGS, you know, like it's like, that actually is kind of smart, Farhan. I really like that. What do I mean by fighting game stains or fighting games skeletons? Well, it's been something, you know, I've been noticing, like a trend ever since, like, you know, the past couple of years, right, to be more specific, where fighting games have like, they come out, right, especially like the modern ones or the new ones, like they come out like fresh out of like the oven, everybody's loving them, everybody's, you know, talking about them, everybody's posting, you know, content, whether it be, you know, lab tech of a specific character to online hilarity moments, you know, or even like, you know, story mode, or even like gallery, everybody's talking about, you know, set like game. But then all of a sudden, you know, a rumor comes out, and you know, nowadays like rumors or like leaks, I usually put them like, you know, together, like in the same table. Rumors are treated as like, you know, the truth. Most of like the truths for like these like fighting games come out as like tainted like stains, like something like if you have like a shirt, a white like polo t-shirt, and then you spill like marinara sauce while you're trying to like eat pizza, it's like a stain and it will never like, you know, come off. I've been seeing that a lot for fighting games, especially like nowadays, with like these like, you know, unfixable, unwashable stains or taints on their images. A few like examples I would point out would be like SNK, right? SNK being, you know, they're popping off right now with like Fatal Fury and all that jazz. Everybody's liking Fatal Fury for the most part. We're not going to talk about, you know, the leaderboards for Evo and CEO and things like that. we're not going to talk about those. SNK is aligned with the Saudi royal family or the Saudi government, and so if you know about the Saudi government or the Saudi royal family, you know, and how fucked up their shit really is. They've been trying to like reform, but we know like their history. Another example would be Capcom. I think like a year ago, made fans hella what was it, skeptical about they asses. I mean, it's Capcom, they always have some like sketchy shit, but more recently with like Street Fighter 6, they made their premier Street Fighter 6 exclusive tournament all the way in Japan, pay-per-view. Why? Because the Capcom esports guys were in charge, and without any consent from like the devs, like even the devs like Nakayama and Matsumoto-san were like, what the fuck, bro? Yeah, they made that shit like pay-per-view without like, you know, anyone's like consent. because a lot of majority of Street Fighter players, you know, their high player base is in Japan, so they gotta cater to Japan fans and fuck everybody else internationally. So on and so forth. There are like, you know, a ton of examples, right? But that's what I mean by like fighting game stains, where like, you know, this fighting game may have like started off really good or gained a lot of like traction, positive traction, gained a lot of like, you know, momentum, but there's always like, whether it be like immediately or like later in the game's like lifespan, there's gotta be some dirt. No, not there's gotta be. There's some dirt about, you know, said game, and that it's like, you know, like I said, unwashable. And yeah, it just sort of, you know, makes like the conversation about your favorite fighting game kind of like, not, I wouldn't use the word like icky. I want to use the word, you know, icky vicky, right? But it just makes like your fighting game like, oh, your game is like, you know, aligned with this, or your game like had this, and it just makes like the conversation, especially like online, what I've been seeing, like, you know, kind of tedious and annoying, right? So my like discussion about like fighting game stains is that, yeah, there's a noticeable like trend with fighting games that they have like this sort of flack to them, you know, they have this, you know, stain to them that makes it hard for them to, you know, wash it out. It becomes unwashable, and fans are hella like against those games because of their past like history, and you know, more in this generation, like recent like events. And that very annoying because, right, these poor like fighting games, they're made and published by the companies that make them, and it's not really like their fault per se, right? Which is like the argument I want to like, you know, propose is like, it's not their fault, right? Like how I brought up with Street Fighter is that it wasn't Matsumoto and Nakayama-san, the devs' fault, right? That they didn't agree for the pay-per-view shit for Capcom Pro Tour. They were still like aghast, like I would imagine even to this day. They weren't, you know, happy with that decision from the Capcom Japanese esports side and making the pay-per-view. They tried everything they can to lower costs and adding like colors, I think specifically to like Rashid maybe, but they tried everything in their power, right? But ultimately the decision was like, you know, made, right? So it was not their fault. At least like they tried. And companies are shitheads. Back to like the topic at hand, I really don't like the conversation of fighting games, you know, being equated or associated with like these stains, because what it does to the people talking about like them is that it creates like a vibe of canceling the game. Like, I'm not going to be playing this game. Oh, I'm not going to play Fatal Fury because it has Saudi money all over it, right? Knowing like how they treat like other people with different appearances and all that jazz. No, I'd rather not be associated with that. And then there was like Bandai Namco with like Tekken. I don't want to be associated with Tekken that betrays their fan base, you know. Immediately, like, what's the word, like, if I want to like use it, virtue signaling, like a new phrase where they like what the teens say, what the kids say nowadays, which I had to like look up, which is like virtue signaling is like if I'm like paraphrasing, I'm just trying to like remember, but correct me, it's kind of like you're saying like a moral like high guard type of like stance, but then you're doing it for your own selfish like purposes, to promote something or to like build a narrative, so to speak, you know, which that also, once again, for like I think the nth team time, I kind of don't like that. I really don't like that, because fighting games, you know, being associated with that, yeah, it sucks. Like, it's sort of like, you know, a pro and a con, because it is correct to have, like, you know, a stance against like this corporate like bullshit, right? Another example would be like Avatar, because Avatar Legends, we later found out that it's being run by like Paramount Games, and one of the developers is the asshole that fucked up like, you know, the generational run of like Skullgirls, Mike Z. So that's already disgusting. And don't even get me started on like, you know, Marvel Tokon being part of like, you know, Sony and PlayStation, where Sony nowadays is, or especially now, is seen as the villain, is seen as the heel, right? With delaying their Flex Strike, making Marvel Tokon, especially Marvel Tokon, you know, run better on PlayStation, and the biggest one of them all, by January 2028, they are going to be going full send into digital products. No more physical discs will be made. You have until January 2028 to get physical merchandise, which I still have my Assassin's Creed Black 5 right here. You see that, Sony? I'm like kind of like caving in to all the Twitter people, right? You see this, Sony? A physical disc. It's still alive and well. We're still gonna be buying discs. Fuck you. I don't like that, because there are numerous reasons about it. To side with like that stance, because yeah, you should take a stance against like corporate assholes being like shitty and fucking up your products, right? It's good to take a, you know, a virtuous stance, right, on the things that like you want to protect, you want to care and nurture for, sort of like speak. And it's good to protect those things that you like. It's good to like, you know, protest and be vocal and be out there with your words, because otherwise we would just be, you know, complicit and just be like sheep, just consume and, you know, be okay with whatever the flow and tides are in life, you know. And that's not how humanity, I feel humanity works. But on the side against it, it's like these fighting games are inherently, well, of course, fighting games, right? And I've talked about this a lot. Fighting games are not that successful, right? So the minute you start like, you know, virtue signaling, or, you know, not even virtue signaling, like understanding that like, you know, taint association with said like fighting game, and then you decide to like cancel it, that I feel like that's not fair for, you know, the fighting games that like we enjoy and play, because we still like those games. Like at the end, I still enjoy Street Fighter, not much so for like Tekken, I mean, quote unquote, nowadays. I still enjoy Fatal Fury, I still enjoy Avatar, I still enjoy Tokon, I still enjoy the games that I like, you know, even with the stains that they got on their shirts, you know? So, I don't like this, like, you know, cancel type of like shit, where people would immediately like, you know, turn the other cheek and not, you know, play or watch their favorite fighting games because they take a moral like high stance, and they don't want to be associated with that, which is completely like natural and normal, right? Everybody wants to, you know, take the right stance in like life, you know, completely like natural. But I just feel like, you know, for fighting games, that's not fair to them. That's very unfair, I feel, because a lot of the games that, you know, we play and love won't get that pop off, that momentum, because of, you know, virtuous like alignments, you know? Man, I still like play Fatal Fury. I still play Guilty Gear Strive. I still play Invincible Versus, and Invincible Versus, they got like a massive like layoff. I heard like Rip got laid off. Oh man. MVCI, I still love to this day, despite its horrible graphics and the corporate incentivization to make it, you know, MCU centric like focused, right? Battle for the Grid, my favorite like Power Rangers like fighting game, albeit bullshit because of the things that you do, but bro, anyway, ditch that to the curbside, because you want to know what they made like afterwards? An Olympic game, and was prioritizing NFTs.
Bruh.
Numerous examples that we could just like, you know, spit about like these fighting games that have like taints, right? But it still is like not fair, because I still like them and I still play them. And ultimately, like, the message I want to, like, you know, say is sort of like, you know, a neutral, like, approach is like, yes, you're still allowed, because you're still human, you're still allowed to love and play, like, these fighting games that give you, like, unadulterated joy and excitement in life, right? For me, fighting games, you know, me being on, like, you know, the spectrum and saying like, I'm just like outing myself and like, I love Power Rangers, you know, like all that shit. I like to play like these games from time once in a blue moon with like friends, or even just like by myself, like labbing and having like, you know, good times, just relearning, or if it's like an old game, or learning if it's like a new game, right? I get so much joy from like fighting games, right? Me personally. But you could still play them with knowing like that information. That doesn't make you like, you know, a bad person, right? It will make you bad on like, you know, social media, but in those cases, just shut that shit off from like your brain. No one is like really like gonna judge you. You shouldn't listen to social media for, you know, a barometer or a judge, right? That's, you know, that's a flaw right there, because social media has a bunch of like shitheads that will always say what they want to say, and will not, you know, compromise any way, shape or fashion, you know? I hate like these like fighting game stains slash skeletons that are carried with like said fighting games, whether it be, you know, company like corporate greed, or, you know, involvement with another like potentially like a government sort of like thing, or even like assholes from a bygone era that are now in like in a new game, right? I hate that, right? Because people will immediately take the stance of like, yeah, I'm just gonna like cancel my pre-order. I'm not gonna play this game. Can I ask for a refund? I don't want to be aligned with like this person anymore. Feels unfair to like the games that to the fighting games that are out now, or even like back then, right? Because fighting games are inherently like, you know, the least like, say like genre. Hey, hi Nat. But also at the same time, it's good to like take a stance on your like views, your moral views, your virtuous views. Just understand them, but you can still play them. There's no shame in that, right? There's no shame in that.